Yes, it's finally Spook Month again. I get to talk about Silent Hill for an hour and it won't even be considered weird and obsessive. Let's see. Did Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill 4, Silent Hill 1 fell apart spectacularly before I finished it, but whatever. Guess that means it's your turn, Silent Hill 3. Silent Hill 3?
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
What's gotten into you? Why are you acting all bougie all of a sudden? Holy shit, what is happening here? So while I wasn't looking, apparently, Silent Hill 3 suddenly became the most expensive video game I own. As of September 2020, a complete in-box, black label copy of Silent Hill 3 goes for anywhere from $70 to $100, with even loose copies ranging from $40 to $60. This appears to be a direct result of the Silent Hill Dead by Daylight DLC, as the price hike and the trailer for said update line up pretty well. Side note, don't play the Silent Hill character in Dead by Daylight if you haven't played Silent Hill 3. You don't even have to read her lore page. The character themselves is a huge fucking spoiler. The price inflation makes sense, as despite the positive reception, the US PlayStation 2 version of Silent Hill 3 only appears to have had one print run. I've never seen a greatest hits version or anything like that, and the PC version was never brought to Steam or GOG, meaning you're rather low on legal ways to play Silent Hill 3. Believe it or not, this did influence this year's Halloween special. I was just gonna do a game breakdown thing like I did for Silent Hill 2. Don't watch it, it's 3 years old and cringe as fuck. However, I realized that thanks to this random rise in rarity, it would be harder for people to procure the game properly for their own personal playing experience. By properly, I mean not this. Later. I'll deal with you later. Anyway, I decided we could have a wholesome Halloween experience and go through the game together, in addition to the analysis and monster breakdown type stuff you'd expect. Don't worry about this one being cancelled for unforeseen reasons, as I've taken the steps necessary to back up the files this time. This one will be finished.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear.
Welcome to Silent Hill 3. Please calmly direct yourself to the options screen to adjust your language, which is set to Japanese for some reason, crank up the blood effects, and make controls actually usable. Your guide will take the time to set the combat difficulty, which affects item dispersion, enemy health, and damage output. Then look to your right where you'll see puzzle difficulty. No. We'll talk about this little fucking thing in a bit. So, what's my angle here? Usually when I make a video like this, I have some sort of point I'm trying to make, so what is it this time? Well, as the title implies, I want to take a look at Silent Hill 3 and see why, in most circles, it's settled into its place as the second best horror game, constantly playing second fiddle to its older brother, Silent Hill 2. I think I've narrowed down this weird phenomenon to the idea of perfect, well, almost. What I mean is that most aspects of the game, its puzzles, its combat, its level design, are all fantastic, but all suffer from a fatal flaw of some sort that drags the game down. It'll make more sense once we get started, I promise.
Where am I?
Ugh. Silent Hill 3 isn't fucking around. After selecting your difficulty, you're tossed into an abandoned amusement park. There's no dialogue, tutorials, or explanations of any kind, effectively making the player just as confused as this blonde young woman will be guiding through this nightmare. If you press select to open your inventory, which many people including myself may not think to do on your first playthrough, you'll find an assortment of late game weapons and healing items. Now's really not the time to deal with the specifics of these items and their uses though, because we really should just be running by. There's nothing of value in this area of the park. Sprinting through the park as quickly as possible, we find that most areas are blocked off, save for the roller coaster. Climbing a series of stairs, the young woman finds herself stuck, with the only option being to make her way across the tracks of the coaster itself, despite how unsafe that might seem. You have to be cautious here, as unlike other Silent Hill games, there's no invisible wall keeping you from falling. The walls exist on easy action difficulty, but like, does anyone really need a Silent Hill game to be easier?
What a nightmare.
The young woman wakes to find herself alone at a dining table in the Central Square shopping center, in a city that's near Portland, but we don't know where specifically.
Dad, it's me. Yeah. Sorry I didn't call sooner. Yeah, I guess I was. Anyway, I'm coming home now. Oh, I didn't get that thing you asked me to. Okay. Okay, I will. I love you too, Dad.
Heather, I need to speak with you. My name is Douglas Carter. I'm a detective.
A detective? Really? Well, nice talking to you.
Hold on. There's someone that wants to meet you. Just let me have an hour. No, half an hour of your time.
My daddy always told me not to talk to strangers.
This is very important. It's about your birth.
I'm not interested. Are you still following me? Do I have to scream?
Sorry. I'll wait here.
On the bathroom mirror, our protagonist, whose name is Heather, finds a bizarre occult-looking symbol that's smeared on with some sort of red substance. She describes it as something that feels familiar, but she can't place why. This is a halo of the sun. They show up on various surfaces around the game, and we use them to save our progress. It doesn't seem to matter on what surface and through what medium these halos are presented. They seem to work perfectly fine regardless of how you create them. Climbing out the window to get away from that detective, Heather finds the path back to the street blocked, so she decides to just cut around back into the mall and leave from there, which would be a lot easier if a baffling number of doors weren't. You know, this is kind of a weird way to explain away the devs not being able to model every single room, but it's so much of a series staple that I think I'd feel cheated if it wasn't here. Well, this place is looking a lot more condemned than it was a moment ago. I'm sure it's nothing. Going through the only doors we can, Heather eventually ends up in a boarded-up clothing store, where she finds an out-of-place pistol lying on the ground.
What the hell is this thing?
Huh, empty. I appreciate that detail. Okay, so we need to get the hell out of here. Leaving through the employee entrance, we find a map of the shopping complex and take it with us. If you've played Silent Hill games before, this whole thing should be familiar. Heather's position and facing direction are shown by the green arrow, and passages you've interacted with are given one of 3 red symbols. An arrow for passable, a thick solid line for locked areas that need a key of some sort, and a squiggly sort of line for doors that cannot be opened no matter what. Heather marks these automatically, thank God, so you don't have to manually place these yourself. This small tadpole-like monster is a numbody, named for their pale skin and the awkward, stilted way they bumble around, like their nerves are numb and they can't sense anything. They're the most harmless combat monster in Silent Hill 3, able to do little apart from throwing themselves recklessly into Heather. This does next to no damage, but they try to compensate for it by attacking in packs of usually 3 or so. Even if they're not very strong, it's probably still for the best that you shoot them, as attempting to swing a melee weapon at a horde of them will likely result in a handful of knocks that, when stacked together, will take a decent bit of your health away that you could have avoided losing. It's not like bullets are exceptionally rare in this game. While most Silent Hill monsters exist to represent some concept or aspect of a character's subconscious, numbodies don't have a specific concrete reason for existing. The guy who worked as the art director, the immensely talented Masahiro Ito, said so himself. If I had to take a stab at what it might mean, I'd say the fact they come off as helpless, weak, and underdeveloped might be important. That's all well and good, I guess, but symbolism aside, these things need to go. To fight in Silent Hill 3, you have to equip a weapon from the pause menu, hold R2 to enter what the game calls caution mode, then press X to swing or shoot. When an enemy is downed, you can press X to stomp on it, a move you should get into the habit of doing, as it's a quick and effective way to make sure whatever you're fighting isn't getting back up. There's also a guard. but like, I never use it and always forget it's even something I can do. I'm sure it's important on extreme difficulty, but I've never needed to block in any of my playthroughs. All of that being said, this is a survival horror game, and in keeping with such traditions, it's in your best interest to avoid combat whenever possible, preserving limited supplies and all that. As we trek further into the mall, things look more and more dilapidated and run down. Heather finds a storage room, and underneath a large stack of boxes in the corner is a key just out of reach. This is a nice simple way of easing us into the use item with thing adventure game logic that Silent Hill employs. In a nearby bakery, we can find a pair of tongs, then come back and snatch up the key. Examining it reveals it's to the bestsellers bookstore, so I guess that's where we're going next. At the far end of the bookstore is another entrance to the staff hallways, but it's locked with a security pin. To find the number, we'll have to solve Silent Hill 3's first major riddle. And this is the reason thousands of people quit playing this game a half hour in. Welcome to the Enigma Zone, a wonderful little pocket dimension I've manifested where we have infinite time to ponder over riddles most mysterious and game design most foul. This is the infamous Shakespeare Puzzle, the most notorious part of Silent Hill 3. To start off, pick up the 5 books off the floor, each one containing a different Shakespeare play. Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, King Lear, Othello, and Macbeth. On normal puzzle difficulty, this doesn't matter. The books each have parts of a number carved into their spine, and all you have to do is place them along the shelf in the correct order to get the number you need. A 5-year-old could solve this thing. Pretty fitting for your intro to more complicated multi-item puzzles. So, why do so many people quit and restart the game here? Well, let's go back to that almost perfect thing I mentioned before. I called the video that because nearly every aspect of Silent Hill 3 is very close to being perfect, but usually has some fatal defect that drags it down. In terms of puzzles, it's a big one. This puzzle is the player's first encounter with Silent Hill 3's most well-known flaw: hard riddle difficulty. I know that just sounds like me complaining that something's too challenging, but hear me out. On hard riddle difficulty, the books have no special markings, only which volume they are in an anthology, 1 through 5. Nearby, you'll find a note with a poem on it that wasn't present in Easy or Normal. In here is a tragedy. Art thou player or audience? Be as it may, the end doth remain. All go on only toward death. The first words at thy left hand, a false lunacy, a madly dancing man, hearing unhearable words drawn to a beloved's grave, and there, mayhap, true madness at last. As did this one, playing at death, find true death at last. Killing a nameless lover, she pierced a heart rent by sorrow. Doth lie invite truth? Doth verity but wear the mask of falsehood? Ah, thou pitiful, thy miserable ones! Still amidst lies, though the end cometh not, wherefore yearn for death? Wilt thou attend to thy beloved? Truth and lies, life and death, a game of turning white to black and black to white. Is not a silence brimming with love more precious than flattery? A peaceful slumber preferred to a throne besmirched with blood? One vengeful man spilled blood for 2. 2 youths shed tears for 3. 3 witches disappeared thusly, and only the 4 keys remain. Ah, but verily, in here is a tragedy. Art thou player or audience? There's nothing which cannot become a puppet of fate or an onlooker peering into the cage. Okay, so what's the deal? For starters, by telling you what each book is, I've already given you more help than the game gives you naturally. The books are all the same save for their numbers, and the only way to know that each one is a different play is to examine them in your inventory, an action that you basically never have to do in any Silent Hill game outside of this puzzle. Once you've done that, we come to the second roadblock: actually knowing what these 5 plays are about. You cannot read the books from your inventory. The game expects you to have outside knowledge of these 5 stories to continue. There is absolutely no in-game method of learning the information that you need. Now, for Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet, I'd say these 2 are relatively common knowledge. They've permeated pop culture, and it's not out of the realm of possibility to expect someone to know them. Macbeth is a little more obscure, and King Lear and Othello, ugh. I like to consider myself relatively well-read, and even I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what happens in these. And I promise you, a random 15-year-old off the street in 2003 couldn't answer either. But say you are intimately familiar with all 5 plays, however unlikely that may be. You're now ready to take a stab at actually solving this thing, and I'm gonna skip some details here and there to try and get to the point faster, so as to not bore you to death. We need to get a 4-digit key code out of this somehow, so let's take another look at that poem. The first paragraph here, trash it, doesn't help us. The second paragraph is referencing Hamlet. The third paragraph is about Romeo and Juliet. The fourth paragraph is where things get nasty. This section of the poem is incredibly vague, and for years, if you looked around at guides online or just asked people on forums, they would likely tell you this part is referencing Macbeth, myself included, but it turns out it isn't. As confirmed by Silent Hill 3's translator, this is another paragraph of flavor text that can be tossed to the wayside. Right in the middle of the damn puzzle, too. That's devious. The fifth paragraph is Othello. No, I don't know why. I don't know anything about Othello. Process of elimination. The sixth paragraph is also a bastard. Unlike the other stanzas, this one is actually about 2 of the plays. The first part, about love more precious than flattery, is King Lear, and the throne besmirched with blood is where Macbeth should go. Alright, so the pin number is 41523. Okay, so, that's not 4 numbers. Back to the poem. Here we are. The bottom of paragraph 7 says, 3 witches disappeared thusly, and only the 4 keys remain. Taking into consideration the only thing most people know about Macbeth is the trio of witches, we can safely say the number 3 anthology, Macbeth, can be discarded. This is why Macbeth's placement was probably incorrect for so long, but nobody noticed. Since it's removed from the sequence, you could interpret it in any of the stanzas and still technically get the right answer, as long as the other 4 were in order. This gives us 4152. Or not. This number is wrong. We somehow still aren't done. Let's look at the first part of the 7th stanza again. 1 vengeful man spilled blood for 2. This means we should take the story about a man seeking vengeance, which doesn't narrow things down much, but specifically for someone seeking vengeance for 2 people. Hamlet intended to kill his uncle for both himself and his deceased father, I guess? I don't really know. Regardless of reasoning, what we're meant to do is double Hamlet's number, from 4 to 8. 2 youths shed tears for 3 is pretty obvious. 2 youths, Romeo and Juliet. I guess they're also counting Paris as the 3rd person, so times their number 1 by 3. So 8352 is the hard mode puzzle solution. And it only took me 10 minutes and multiple Google searches to explain it. Yay. I know that may have ended up looking a little more straightforward than I said it was, but keep in mind, I knew what to do from playing the game multiple times beforehand. If this was your first run and you were some random guy or girl the year the game came out, you could have missed one of the play's positions, or not understood the multiply step, or whatever, resulting in you scrapping whatever logic you've applied and starting over, which might take you even further away from your answer. And somehow, this is one of the easier ones.
Hey, wait, what's going on? Where is everybody? Those weird monsters?
They've come to witness the beginning. The rebirth of paradise, despoiled by mankind.
What are you talking about?
Don't you know? Your power is needed.
How should I know?
I am Claudia.
So what?
Remember me, and your true self as well. Also, that which you must become. The one who will lead us to paradise with blood-stained hands.
Claudia, right? Did you do all this?
It was the hand of God.
get it. What does she want me to remember?
She seems nice. But what was all that crap about paradise and our true self? Does that woman have something to do with the monsters around here? Why does she not have eyebrows? Questions for later. Right now, we just need to find a way out of here. In a stroke of bad luck, Heather finds there's no way we can reach the exit from this floor. We're going to have to use the elevator to head up and see if we can find a path back down to a more advantageous spot.
Is this a dream? It's gotta be. Not even a kid could believe in this. But when am I going to wake up?
Wow. I genuinely can't believe this place got even worse. Greetings and salutations from the Otherworld Shopping Center. If you haven't played the previous two games, you're likely confused and terrified as to what just happened, as you should be. The Otherworld is a parallel dimension that stems from the unknown powers surrounding the town of Silent Hill. In the Otherworld, visuals and layouts change drastically, enemies become more numerous, and things generally just get a lot more concerning. Other worlds are treated like separate dungeons, with your map resetting back to a blank slate when you switch over, which makes sense because the changes are so severe that your old map would be useless anyway. The sad yelping you hear is from a type of creature called a doublehead. Doubleheads look like sickly dogs, covered in burnt, peeling flesh, wrapped in bloody bandages that desperately try to keep their decaying bodies held together. Their namesake head is gruesomely sliced in two, and they attack by rushing around and biting you, as rabid dogs are wont to do. They can be distracted by putting down a piece of jerky that you can find throughout the game, but unless you're playing on a high difficulty, I can't see you needing to do this. They are very fast and often in enclosed areas, but they're still not something that Heather can't deal with. Ito-san explained that the doubleheads were put near the beginning of the game to symbolize Heather's descent into a hellish world, with their multiple heads meant to invoke images of Cerberus, the guardian of hell. Their appearance, being burnt and covered in bandages, also calls to mind memories of Alessa Gillespie from Silent Hill 1. Their split head could also be a reference to the fact that Alessa split herself into two parts: the vengeful burnt corpse, Alessa, and her discarded innocence, Cheryl. This is a closer. You'll remember it was the very first monster we came up against, though that scene was automated. Now we have to deal with them ourselves. Closers are huge, lumbering humanoids that slowly drag themselves around with their mutated club arms, each of which is hiding a large spike that can be thrust out or retracted at any time. They have a gross, writhing, tubular structure with a pair of lips in place of their head, and their attire resembles a woman in a short dress and knee-high boots. The term closer comes from their imposing structure, being used to close off paths to the player. As far as more symbolic readings go, there isn't anything official. The inception of the closer was simply that the monster designer, Masahiro Ito, wanted to reuse a rare monster from Silent Hill 2 called a Mandarin that he felt was underused and underappreciated. He says that it's meant to show that Silent Hill itself does have its own monsters and guardians, and not every creature is a personal psychological manifestation. It's almost always in Heather's best interest to run around them, as they have a ton of health and are the most damaging enemy outside of bosses, so fighting them can be costly to both health and supplies. In the bathroom, we find a bottle of bleach, but aside from that, there's nothing else useful on this floor, so time to head up, I guess. That voice sounds familiar for some reason. And I could swear there was an image there for a split second. It looked like a little girl screaming for help. As it stands now, we have no way of getting back to the first floor, because it's, gone. Guess it's back to checking out the places we can still access. In a jewelry store, we get to see a little of Heather's personality shine through when she examines this broken display. There was a nice silver ring in here the last time I came. Bummer that it's gone, huh? I don't know. It's little stuff like that that makes Heather more fun and endearing compared to the other Silent Hill protagonists. She acts appropriately scared, but at the same time maintains a sort of forced humor to keep herself going. In one of the other cases is a walnut. Yes, a walnut. But we don't have any way of breaking it open without damaging whatever's inside. It could be fragile, so we'll just tuck that away. Next up is a rather nice-looking restaurant. The lighting is pleasing, things don't look too torn up, and... let's just keep moving. We can use the dog key to unlock some sort of cooking area. Jutting out from the wall is a broken length of pipe that we can take as a weapon. Now we've got something better than the knife at least, but unlike other Silent Hills, the pipe isn't nearly as amazing and universal. Enemies in Silent Hill 3 tend to be faster, have more health, and attack in large groups, making it pretty dangerous to slowly bludgeon them all to death, unlike, say, Silent Hill 2, where you can spend all day whacking lying figures and mannequins till the cows come home. I'd still recommend using the pistol for most encounters for now. On a table in the adjacent room, we find a bottle of cleaner, which we're gonna need once we head out the door. This hallway has a huge ventilation fan on the wall that we can turn on or off. Heading to the left, we find another corridor, though this one is blocked off by a swarm of black moths. In the corner, there's an oddly placed empty bucket, and points to you if you figured out what we're supposed to do. Looking in our inventory, you'll notice that the cleaner and bleach have a combine option. If you attempt to do so, it'll fail, because you don't have a container to mix them in. So by standing near the bucket and then combining them... the bleach and the ammonia in the cleaner mix to create chloramine, an incredibly toxic gas that will kill you if you breathe it. This might seem a little obtuse, but I think a majority of adults know how dangerous it is to mix cleaning supplies, so I think it's fairly understandable that you'd think to use it to kill something in this situation. Then we just go and turn the fan back on to vent the area so we can go inside safely. We can use the vice grip located in this room to safely crack open the walnut. Within it is a small white gem called the Moonstone. Guess we'll have to find out where to put this. Yeah, here we go. Up on the 3rd floor, there's a door with a crescent moon shape etched into it. Besides the marking, there's a small hole that would be perfect for our stone. I suppose we found a way down. You better have grasped the combat controls by now, because we're about to need them. The Split Worm is the first boss of Silent Hill 3, a monstrous pile of rough skin that splits open to reveal a pink, fleshy maw. Its visage and name are very similar to the Split Head, the first boss of Silent Hill 1, which is certainly no coincidence. What is also no coincidence is its general, shape. Pregnancy, birth, and loss of innocence are heavily present themes in Silent Hill 3, so it's very likely the Split Worm was purposefully meant to look like what you think it looks like. It attacks by slamming its body around in this sort of earthquake attack, trying to bite Heather, or by burrowing in between the different holes around the arena. Heather has few attacking options at this point, so when not avoiding its attacks, it's time to just start unloading handgun shots into it, making sure to aim for its exposed insides where it takes more damage.
What? It's the shopping mall just like before. Am I back?
It would seem that everything's back to normal. For now, anyway. Maybe we can finally get home.